Hello everyone, welcome to the World Series of Board Gaming's How to Win series, where we take a look at every game in the 16 and beyond, giving you the skills that you need to come out on top in any tournament setting. Here at the World Series of Board Gaming, we are about competition and camaraderie, bringing people together in the friendliest way to win $25,000. The people here are fantastic. And if you are interested in attending the World Series of Board Gaming, well, there is a promo that is still running that I'm going to tell you about right now. You could win your share of $100,000 in cash and prizes just for playing board games. The World Series of Board Gaming is back and bigger than ever. High-level play, friendly competition, national championships, there's no other event of its kind. Are you the next big name in board gaming? Get your tickets now at WSBGVegas.com and use the code IMN to save yourself up to $50. What are you waiting for? It's time to get in the game. So be sure to use that code IMN. It gets you $50 off that stay and play, but it also would get you $20 off the open gaming ticket. We have a number of different tournaments running. There's a War Gaming Invitational if you like things like Star Wars Rebellion, Twilight Struggle, Julius Caesar, or War of the Ring. You can compete in those the day before the main WSBG event. You can do a combo ticket, all sorts of stuff, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to revisit, and yes, I say revisit, the tips to win at Splendor. Splendor is something that I am particularly good at, I would say. If I competed in the World Series, if I was allowed to compete for one of those beautiful, beautiful rings, oh man, would I want to throw my hat in the ring at Splendor. And so I actually did some tips on how to win Splendor on my own personal channel, Room and Board, which I'm going to pull from and tell you about right now.
Splendor is also one of these games that in the last 30 days, I've played approximately 17 times with various player counts and won every game. Of course, maybe the people who I was playing with are not as brilliant as you, and in that case, drop your tips for strategy in the comments. But this is going to be a quick video. I'm just going to go through 5 tips that I think you should consider if you're playing Splendor and want to increase your chances of winning. And tip number 1 is potentially the most important one, so that's why I'm starting with it before everyone leaves, except the one that's really later, which, woof, that'll blow your mind. Tip number 1 is to play the starting board. Splendor is, in its essence, an engine building game. You are going to slowly ramp up so that you can get to 15 points before your opponent. And the only information all of you have at the very beginning is the starting board, and more specifically, which of the higher value cards are in play and what their requirements are. If there are 2 cards in the 3rd row that require blue gems to purchase, it feels like a pretty safe bet to target the other blue gems on the board as your starting play. If you're unsure about what card to go for at the beginning, think about the chain that you can create running up the ladder to your end game. If you're not already planning for your end game at the beginning, you are steps behind those who are planning for that thing. And this is also a way that I have lost. I have not considered this as impactfully as it should have been. I thought, oh, these are a little bit easier to obtain, I'll go for those and I'll hope something else comes up down the line. Whereas I open the door for people to already get their engine started, moving towards their specific end games. And if you do that, you're one step closer to winning. That being said, tip number 2 is that blocking an opponent is equally as important as reserving your own cards. And this varies depending upon the player count, but if you see that somebody is ramping up towards that endgame strategy, and they might be 3 or 4 moves away, timing out when to steal that card from them before they can reserve it is game breaking. If you're playing with multiple people, hopefully you can convince one of the other people around the table that they need to take that card or the game's over. Usually what I would do is I would make my move and then I go, shoot, I should have taken that. And then you explain the reasons why if that person who's right next to you gets that card, the game is over. And quite often those will be the actual reasons, and you put your opponents in the position of either taking it for themselves and slowing themselves down or letting the other person win the game. Hopefully they don't want to let the other person win the game, unless of course you're playing with people who are playing against me who only care that I don't win and it doesn't matter who else does. May not be effective that way. In that way, you have to be blocking everybody else's cards at the same time. But getting that block down is huge, which kind of blends into tip number 3. A very similar tip is knowing that, don't push your luck. If you know that this one card is integral to your strategy, and you can either take the turn to reserve it, or you can take the turn to gather 3 chips and hopefully be able to purchase it on your turn, somebody who is playing to win is bound to notice this and will screw up your plans. So just take the thing, reserve it, make sure that you get access to it if it is integral to your chain running up the line so that other people can't take it away from you, and then you're left with nowhere to go. People will block you. It's an integral element to the game. So knowing that, don't push your luck and grab the stuff you want the turn before you think you can get away with it. Oftentimes you might get away with it, but I think in this case it's usually better safe than sorry. And pushing your luck often yields in somebody taking that card either early on or later on that can really stutter your growth and put you a few turns behind, which you honestly can't have happen. Tip number 4 is to not underestimate the nobles. Most often when I have lost the game, it is because I have forgotten to pay attention to the nobles. The nobles are a perfect way to just edge yourself over the line at the end of the game. I don't often go for them. I don't find necessarily a need to go for them. I usually can get to 15 points before someone is capable of grabbing them. But if you're too slow, they will be the thing that can potentially be your downfall. Or if you have a choice between 2 different colored cards, pick the card that's going to interact with the most nobles down the line, because again, you're setting yourself up for success. It's all about grabbing those gems and grabbing those cards that can inevitably lead towards options. It's like Kim Spradlin playing Survivor. You want to have options. Noticing those options at the beginning of the game can help you at the end of the game when it really matters. And finally, my number 1 tip. This is a lot shorter than Catan because, well, you know what? Splendor's a lot simpler of a game and deals a lot less with table talk, meaning you only have a certain amount of ways to influence the decisions. But my number 1 tip for winning Splendor, what has been the key to the majority of my victories, is that I ignore the level 1 cards. I don't go for level 1 cards. I only go for level 2 cards and above. And the reason being is that a lot of the level 1 cards, the amount of turns it takes for you to acquire them is around the same number of turns that it'll take to acquire something that might give you 1 or 2 or even 3 points. And while these level 1 cards are good if you're predominantly searching for a noble strategy, you're still dependent upon the luck of the draw as to which ones come up if they'll chain well with the nobles on the board. If you go just for points, because remember, the game is about the first person to get to 15 points. If you go for points right off the bat and prioritize points over everything else, there will be avenues to get things down the line. And it might make sense to pick up a couple of the level 1 gems later on in the game, but the first gem that I purchase usually is something that has points. It then provides me with a baseline, provides me with a base gem to start my engine and opens up the possibilities. And then I haven't wasted my initial turns on getting nothing. I've gotten 1 or 2 points in around the same amount of time as my opponents have gotten 1 or 2 gems that have no points. We're in approximately the same position, but I'm closer to the end and therefore closer to winning. I'm willing to be proven wrong on this fact, but I've played a lot of Splendor in my day, and I think I have lost 1 or 2 games. That's probably not true. It's probably closer to, 5. But these are the strategies that I employ and consider every single time that I play, and it usually results in a fairly successful game, at least on the, winning front.
So there you go. Those are the 5 tips on how you can win Splendor. As with all of these things, there are exceptions, right? I don't often go for the noble strategy, but if you see that the nobles are particularly linked, if it's a 4 and a 4 and 3s of those 4 colors, there's a chance that with 12 cards, you can be able to scoop up 9 points and really steamroll at the end, going for those smaller cards. But really, I would prioritize going for those level 2s. It's not often that I'm beaten in Splendor, but one time I was beaten by Professor Meg, who just played 3 cards. Oh, it was heartbreaking, but it was a great, great play. You can see those tips also came into play in our final game of 2023, which was Splendor. People played Splendor for $25,000 and used these exact tips. Our champion used tip number 1, learned it the night before the event, and was able to use that to come out on top. It's a really good game. I will continuously enjoy Splendor, and I hope you do too. And one that, if you've got the mind for it, maybe you can win yourself a championship ring that then I can battle you for. There was a comment on that last video of the idea that ignoring level 1s isn't as effective if everybody is hoarding chips and holding on to those chips. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because as soon as you buy a card, more chips will go into the center, and yes, people can take them again, but you're never going to run out, right? People won't. It would have to be a real weird concerted effort for people to everyone to hold on to their chips. There's always going to be some sort of cycle back into the center, unless everyone's going for level 1. There was one game of Splendor that I played where all 3 people were going for level 1s, and the fact that they just chained it together, it went on for a long time, and I was almost getting phased out. But generally, you can be quicker than your opponents if you pursue that sort of level 2 strategy. I was able to edge them out even as they were cascading because I was able to get 15 points quicker. Anyway, I hope you will consider joining us in Vegas either for the main tournament, the open gaming, or somewhere in between. We have an outer ring ticket where you can compete in a various number of events, national championships. There is something for everybody at World Series. And if you are free September 22nd to the 26th, I hope you consider joining. Thank you, everybody, for watching. My name is Chris George. And on behalf of all of us here at the World Series, get in the game. And we'll see you in Vegas.